Namo dassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu. Good evening, everyone, and again with the Sunday Sutta readings. And we are still going through the Bhayabherava Sutta, or Fear and Dread, the fourth Sutta of the Majjima Nikaya. We discussed last week how it is about the Bodhisattva, the Lord Buddha before his enlightenment, and how when he was residing in jungle thickets, in the thick jungles, in places, in horrifying places where such things as human sacrifices take place, it's not that he took part in them, but these are places where people usually did it. And he went and stayed there, and when fear and dread came upon him, how he overcame it. And then we went on to how, following its overcoming, the mind was stilled and he attained to the fourth jhana, and then developed the abhinya, which is a higher knowledge, the recollection of past lives. And the footnote for this book, it says that this method of recollecting past lives is mentioned in great detail in the Visuddhimaga. The Visuddhimaga is, I think, is quite famous. It's like this really ancient meditation manual that was written by Venerable Buddhaghosa in Sri Lanka. And this meditation manual, it describes in great detail. It's like an encyclopedia of Buddhist practice, and it describes all the different meditation techniques that are used in the sasana, and is still used to this day, 1,500 years later, in not just in Sri Lanka but in Myanmar, in Thailand, in Laos, Cambodia, and even nowadays in the Tibetan tradition, because the Tibetan scholars and the Tibetan meditation masters are also studying it. So it's the place to go if one wants to learn about in great detail about meditation. But so anyway, when it comes to the recollection of past lives, I was reading through it earlier, and it was mentioning that you need to go up to the fourth jhana, which is the jhanas are these deep states of absorbment in concentration that one has to work towards to attain these knowledges, and that in itself is an incredibly difficult thing to do. That takes a lot of work and really good purification of conduct, purification of precepts, and diligent and continuous effort in order to get there into that level of concentration. And it's saying after the fourth jhana, one needs to start recollecting the past. So you first of all you start from the moment of sitting down, and then how you were walking towards the sitting down, and like that, just by moment by moment recollecting everything that happened, everything that you did, and going like this, mind moment by mind moment, all the way to conception, and then before that, and then mind moment by mind moment back in that life. It's like rewinding your entire life. And I mean, that sounds I mean, you have to do it in great detail. So I mean, if I ask you what you did even just 5 minutes ago, like exactly, can you remember it? Like, can you remember like which hand you were moving, or what whether you were breathing in or breathing out 5 minutes 20 seconds ago, exactly that precisely? That kind of power of recollection is necessary just to cultivate this method this knowledge. And I guess it's easier for those whose mind is so tranquil, as tranquil as one who has attained the fourth jhana is. and also a lot of mindfulness, because when one is mindful, whatever happens is grasped by the mind a lot closer. So um, the Lord Buddha is describing how we attain to this knowledge, and this, I mean, it's very difficult. But there are some people who get memories of random memories of past lives, especially children. There's a lot of records of children who talk about something they did in the past life. Like a story in my family is that I have an auntie who kept saying when she was a little girl that she was a businessman. She was a Muslim businessman with a couple of wives and a really rich trucking in the trucking business. And enemies came and shot him while she was in the office and took the money. So the family decided to investigate this, and they went really far off from our hometown. To this really unknown place up north, and they found out that there was such a person bearing the exact same name, um, with the exact same description, with a trucking business, with I think two or three wives, and who was shot by a burglar. So I mean, you could call that coincidence, but it's way too uncanny. And there are so many stories like that, and they, even in the West, there are some recordings of such stories. I think they are compiled by this famous researcher called Dr. Ian Stevenson, and now his student, Dr. Jim Tucker, I think from Bristol University, I forgot. But anyway, so these memories of past life, mostly it comes by random, but in this method, to make it a proper higher knowledge, it requires this methodical retrospection. And is really interesting, because in the Buddhist scheme of things, there is no such thing as a soul that transmigrates. It's rather a series of conditional interactions and relations. So for example, our mind, the consciousness is not this solid entity. It is this moment that arises based on conditions and then dissolves based on that conditions, and this moment then conditions the next moment of consciousness, and it's this continuous sparks of consciousness that we call awareness, that we call the life stream. And the when you die, is just another such moment of dissolving, but it's a very special moment, and it captures Rupa in the next life, and then the new life begins there. I'm really simplifying this very complex science. Um, I hope maybe one day I could properly explain it without confusing anyone, but today is not that day. So I will get back to reading the sutta. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldly, steady, and attained to interpretability, I directed it to the knowledge of the recollection of past lives. I recollected my manifold past lives. That is one birth, two births, three births, four births, five births, 10 births, 20 births, 30 births, 40 births, 50 births, 100 births, 1,000 births, 100,000 births, many aeons of world contraction, many aeons of world expansion, many aeons of world contraction and expansion. There I was so named of such a clan, with such an appearance, such was my nutriment, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such my life turn. Passing away from there, I reappeared elsewhere, and there too I was so named of such a clan, with such an appearance. Such was my nutriment, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such my life term, and passing away from there I reappeared here. Thus, with their aspects and particulars, I recollected my manifold past lives. So, few. few points about aeons of world contraction and aeons of world expansion. That is a little peek into the Buddhist cosmology, and in the Buddhist understanding of the universe. What is called world here can mean the universe. It's that periodically, across a great deal of time, aeons, such a uncountably long amount of time, the world, the universe contracts and then it expands. Contracts, dissolving everything, destroying everything, and then expands, and everything starts appearing out of that. And so it's saying that the Buddha managed to see every life in even this great amount of time. Um, when I mean a great amount of time, I mean a really great amount of time. So the metaphor used for a kalpa is, let's imagine a huge mountain called a Meru mountain, which is like a really big mountain in the Himalayas. It's unfathomably huge, and every think 1,000 years or 100,000 years, someone walks past with a silk cloth and brushes against the mountain, and how long it takes to wear down the entire mountain to nothing just with that silk robe every 100,000 years or every million years, and that's how long is a kalpa, and the age of a universe is even longer than that. So you can imagine recollecting your life like this. So so long, so many uncountable trillions upon trillions of lives, being able to see from the beginning to the end of each one of them. So you can imagine in one life, you held your appearance so dear. You were really tall and beautiful and eloquent and whatsoever, and so attached to this, but still you had insecurities. And then you die and you're born again, and in this life you're short and hunchbacked and buck-toothed and cross-eyed and lazy-eyed, and you were so suffering because of this, and then you're grasping so strongly at this, and then you die, and like that. And all these concepts that we grasp and hold so close, that we identify with so strongly, we think is the meaning of the life, is the meaning of the world, in one life, and it ends, and again you pick up another set of new concepts and new conceptions and new grasping and new appearance and new world, and this is everything for you, and this is the entire meaning of your life, and that ends, and again you pick up a different set. And you can imagine the sort of outlook when you see the reality of how meaningless all this grasping is, how the mind will not be conditioned anymore to grasp in that manner. um, you called, even identity of I, there were so many eyes, like where is the I, so impermanent. And like this, recollection of past lives will bring about disenchantment with name and form, with nama rupa. This was my first true knowledge, attained by me in the first watch of the night. Ignorance was banished, and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished, and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent, and resolute. So you can see that ignorance would really be banished, and we are living in ignorance right now, in darkness, and being able to see how the true meaning of everything in this manner, how meaningless everything we were grasping at would really be quite an illuminating experience, quite a revolutionary change of mindset. Even just thinking about it, in one form or another, Buddhists are encouraged to think about the length of samsara and all the different lives it entails, to really see what is important in your life. So if you're angry at someone, just think back to your life. Maybe this person was your brother or your father, and you're getting angry about this person. What's the point? And likewise, it can arise wholesome ideas in you. And if you want to kill an animal, maybe that animal was your son in a past life, like that. So even even thinking about it logically, or thinking about it just imagining it, can bring about really wholesome qualities in us. This is really encouraged in the Buddhist world. And you can imagine actually being able to experience and see in such great detail such a vastness of the universe and the vastness of existence, what kind of mindset that would bring about. This was when my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability. I directed it to the knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings, with the divine eye which is purified and surpasses the human. I saw beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate. I understand how beings pass on according to their actions thus. These worthy beings who were ill conducted in body, speech, and mind, revilers of the noble ones, wrong in their views, given effect to wrong weave in their actions, on the dissolution of the body after death, have reappeared in a state of depravation, in a bad destination, in perdition, even in hell. But these worthy beings who are well conducted in body, speech, and mind, not revilers of noble ones, right in their weaves, giving effect to right weave in their actions on the dissolution of the body, after death, having reappeared in a good destination, even in a heavenly world. Thus, with the divine eye which is purified and surpasses the human, I saw beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, and I understand how beings pass on according to their actions. So I guess this is where the Lord Buddha gains an understanding of karma, about the law of action and reaction that is inherent driving force of the universe of our lives. And when you see the consequences of your actions in that manner, it can easily make you consider the importance of every action. This is the second true knowledge attained by me in the middle watch of the night. Ignorance was banished and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent, and resolute. Another thing to mention is the talk of hell and heaven here. In the Buddhist cosmology, these are not eternal, such as in the Abrahamic faiths. One is not doomed to suffer eternally, or have eternal bliss, because nothing really is permanent. So this is just another state of being. For example, what are described as gods living in heaven are not really omnipotent or omniscient beings living in eternal glory. They are just like us. I mean, their lives are much better. They're much better looking, apparently, but they die, grow old, and die just like us. So they're just another bunch of guys. And I guess when you can see this fact for yourself, you would not really be running after eternalism. You wouldn't be running after heaven, or wanting to live in eternal bliss, because you understand that too is impermanent. And if you do bad things, you can easily fall down. And whatever you get is something you work for. You have to work for what you want. And it's important to work for nibbana, because that is the only stable state. When my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, I directed it to the knowledge of the destruction of taints. I directly knew as it actually is. This is suffering. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the origin of suffering. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the cessation of suffering. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. I directly knew as it actually is. These are the taints. I actually knew as it actually is. This is the origin of the taints. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the cessation of the taints. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the way leading to the cessation of taints. Taints being the asavas that we went through a few months ago in the Bhayabherava Sutta. And here it is very important to note that the third and final knowledge is the Four Noble Truths. And knowledge of this, how it leads to the destruction of the asavas, of the taints, and also knowing that they are destroyed. So one has to not only be liberated, but know that you are liberated with absolute confidence, with no doubt whatsoever. If there is a doubt, it is possible that one is not really enlightened. When I knew and saw thus, my mind was liberated from the taint of sensual desire, from the taint of being, from the taint of ignorance. When it was liberated, there came the knowledge it is liberated. I directly knew birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more coming to any state of being. So this is a statement that enlightened beings make, is that there is no more state of being. This is the third true knowledge attained by me in the last watch of the night. Ignorance was banished and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent, and resolute. Now, Brahmin, it might be that you think, perhaps the recluse Gautama is not free from lust, hate, and delusion, even today, which is why he still resorts to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest. But you should not think thus. It is because I see two benefits that I resort to remote jungle thicket resting places in the forest. I see a pleasant abiding for myself here and now, and I have compassion for future generations. So this is sort of preemptively saying, if you're thinking that I'm still living in the jungle because I'm not free of greed, hatred, and delusion, it is not so. It's because one is quite nice, and two, um, for compassion of future generations, namely the monks and nuns to be, the disciples in the future to be, to show that. To be an example that even after he gained recognition and Anathapindika and kings donated monasteries to the Sangha, he still spent quite a lot of time living in the jungle as an example to future generations of disciples, to show that this is the place where you will train the way I trained, the place where you can be free yourself the same way I became free myself. So it is an act of compassion that he did it. Indeed, it is because Master Gautama is an accomplished one, a fully enlightened one, that he has compassion for future generations. Magnificent Master Gautama, magnificent Master Gautama. Master Gautama has made the Dhamma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what had been overthrown, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to the one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. I go to the Master Gautama for refuge, and to the Dhamma, to the Sangha of the Bhikkhus. From today, let Master Gautama remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge. So you can see that um, the Brahmin in the end converted, and he went for refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And he is saying that it is as if the Lord Buddha turned upright what was turned down. This is sort of hinting at the Dhamma being not something the Lord Buddha invented. It is a law of the universe. It is what is called Vishwaniyama Dhamma. It is like a driving force, a navigating force of the universe. So it's basically the laws of existence of reality that was revealed by the Buddha, not something he invented. And he had compassion for future generations, and he taught it in his 45 years of dispensation was for us to be free from suffering. And he set up a great example in his livelihood, in the way he lived, in the example that he set for us to follow in that path and be free ourselves. And the Dhamma is here. It's ahipasiko, it's open aiko. It is open. It is open for our investigation, to follow, to try out for ourselves and see the benefits for ourselves. And the benefits become evident here and now in this life for anyone who is diligent and ardent and resolute. So that's all the time that we have today. And I hope that I wasn't reading too fast. I thought I could finish it today so that we could go on to the Anangana Sutta next week, which is a very interesting one as well, as you will find all the suttas are. So I hope that you all are encouraged to practice after hearing this sutta. And thank you all for listening. And see you next week. Sadhu.